All right, so welcome back, everyone. Today I have a special guest. His name is Tech with Tim on YouTube, and also he has a second channel which he goes over everything Dubai. It's called Life with Tim. But your main channel is the main reason why you actually moved to Dubai. We're gonna dive into that, dive into everything, taxes, life. Tim, pleasure to have you. Let's dive right into it.
Yeah, thanks very much, man. Excited about this. Let's get into it.
And if you're new to the channel, my name is Kevin McKenzie. I'm the co-founder of GenZone, where we personally help people set up their companies here, get their residency, bank accounts, buy real estate, you name it, anything Dubai. If you need our assistance and you want everything done in a professional manner, then book a call using the link down below. So unlike most people that I speak to on YouTube or anywhere in real life, you know exactly what I went through. We went through the exact same thing at different times, but you moved here and you had to pay a lot of money to leave Canada, right? I think it was $500,000.
Yeah, it was a lot. Now it's probably creeping up even closer to 650,000 with all the fees, all the legal stuff, just the process kind of dragging on because when you have an established business, there's just a lot of things you need to do to wrap up in Canada. But yeah, and just pure exit taxes, it was almost, actually more than $500,000 Canadian dollars, which is still insane to think about today.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine it. I paid a lot of money in taxes, not 500K,
Yeah.
but I also have like a lot of clients who move here. And same thing for them. They also have to pay that much money in taxes. A lot of people don't know that Canada does have an exit tax, unlike the UK and a lot of other European countries that don't. For now, keyword for now, because that's definitely going to change, in my opinion, at least. You had to go through that, and it's unfortunate, but at least now you're here. You did that legally. You exited properly, and now you can actually pay less taxes. And the amount of money that you're going to save in taxes now. Have you ever kind of forecasted how much over your lifetime you would actually save?
Oh yeah, I mean, even just in 1 year, I was looking at, how long will it take me in Dubai to make back all of those taxes, and the calculation is less than a year, right? Especially, you're earning US dollars versus Canadian dollars, and I think we're used to our Canadian rupees sometimes, so we don't know exactly, what it is in USD, but yeah, I pretty much already made back all the tax since being here. And over a lifetime, I mean, it will be just millions of dollars, right? Especially when you account for all of kind of the hidden taxes of living in Canada, things like HST, just carbon tax, all the day-to-day taxes you end up paying. And then, of course, income tax, corporate tax, capital gains tax. I mean, that alone, right? If you have a large portfolio year over year, you're immediately just doing 20, 25% better than you would be in Canada, right? So it's an absolute no-brainer, but it is difficult to forego that massive amount of money, kind of see your net worth get slashed. But you do have to do it to kind of put yourself in a better situation, right? It's take one step back to go 3 steps forward.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you made that money back pretty quick.
Yeah.
And one thing that you did mention on your channel, and of course it's a rule where, not a rule, but a law where you can benefit from tax-free savings if your business is a certain amount of value, right? So if you want to speak about that in your situation there.
Sure, yeah. So obviously it's complex, and please consult with an accountant if you're going to do anything like this.
Non-financial advice.
Yeah. But I'll give you a bit of information on it. So there is something called a lifetime capital gains tax exemption in Canada. I believe right now at the time of filming this video, it's about $1 million.
Yeah.
I think they're increasing it slightly. Yeah. But that is how much you can get tax-free if you exit a qualifying business in Canada. So when you leave Canada and you own shares of your own primary company, like I do, like an operational company, as long as it qualifies, and there's lots of qualifying criteria, then you can get away up to that first $1 million tax-free. So the business is worth $1 million. You wouldn't have to pay any tax on that because it's within that threshold.
Yeah.
However, if it's worth $2 million, then you would have a $1 million gain because you claim your $1 million tax benefit. And then you'd have to pay capital gains tax on the increase in value since you obtained the business, likely at $0 value or whatever the cost basis is. And then that would be about 25%. So you're going to pay $250,000, right, for every $1 million in value you have on the business, even if you don't actually sell it because of how the tax works in Canada. I mean, we can get into all the details, but it's essentially an unrealized capital gain tax you pay on practically everything when you leave the country, except that first 1 million of a qualifying small business, and many ones don't qualify.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's why you had to pay that, right? It wasn't that you had that cash on an investment or something. It was really paying that tax on the value of your company, which of course increase in value inherently from you running that business and doing all that stuff. Even if it was a YouTube channel, which some people would say, what's the value in a YouTube channel, right?
So actually there was multiple taxes, and that tax was not the major tax I had to pay. I ended up paying a bunch of taxes to kind of take assets out of Canada. So what happens usually when you're a larger Canadian entrepreneur and you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars per year is you don't take all the money out of your company personally, because then you get slapped with the highest marginal tax rates. Where I lived, it was nearly 55% in Nova Scotia. So what you do instead is, you pay yourself enough money to cover your expenses, and then you funnel the rest of your money into something like a holding company where it can grow tax-free or really tax-deferred. So what ended up happening is I had this holding company that held pretty much my nest egg, like all my assets, all my money that was in investments. And what I needed to do is take the money out of that holding company and send it to myself in the UAE. Now, I could have left it there, but I wanted to get it all out of the holding company, because if I had left it in the holding company, that company didn't qualify for the lifetime capital gains tax exemption. So I would have had to pay an immediate pretty much 25% tax on whatever the value of that company was. Because again, those are shares of a Canadian company I own. The company's value is not in the business operations, but in the assets it's holding. So in my case, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I had to take all that out. So in order to take all that money out, I now have to pay tax on it now, because I didn't pay tax on it when I first earned the money. So I'm now paying huge personal income tax rates, huge corporate dividend tax rates on all that money. And then there's all kinds of other taxes that come in place. It is very, very complicated, but it's not always just the exit tax that will get you. It's where do you currently have your money, and how are you going to take it out and actually access it now that you're leaving Canada? Because you don't want to leave it in Canada because of the ties issue with your tax residency, right?
Yeah, like a big misconception that a lot of people ask me is like, Kevin, can I just send all of my Canadian company's money to my Dubai company and not pay tax? No, of course you cannot do that. You can do it, but it's not legal. That's evasion, right? So you did it the proper way. Of course, ideally you would have moved to Dubai sooner, before you would have had to deal with all this, all these different structures you already had set up in Canada and have to exit and eventually dissolve out of. But it is what it is, right? You made that money back right away, essentially, and now you're tax free moving forward. So that's pretty good, right? So
it's fantastic.
Feels good. How does it feel to, like, let's say you make your 100K on a brand deal or whatever, and you just keep the whole thing?
It's actually incredible. Like, it doesn't even feel real kind of at first when you get here. Like, money gets wired into your account, and it's actually your money to keep. Like, before I would make all this money, but I always have in the back of my head, okay, really, like, probably 40% of this is gone. Even with all the tax, advantage structures, you're still paying a ton of taxes. And if you want to actually use any of that money personally, you want to buy a car or a nice property or something like that, you're paying even more in taxes. So now it really feels, I can't believe I was in a situation where I didn't have access to my money before, because now life just feels so free. Like, I'm making so much money, but I actually get to use it. Whereas in Canada, it felt like this kind of distant future. Like, maybe I'll use it one day. That's
the problem, right? Like, people in Canada, yes, they can defer the taxes, sure, but you can't use that money. And if you try to use it like, I'll use my company card to buy a car, you're not doing it properly, right? And you can't even write off the entire thing in most cases. So yeah, like, it feels good. Like, the money you make here, you actually keep it. It's actually for you, and you can reinvest it back into your life, do whatever you want with it. Who knows what might change in the future, but at least for now, that's the beauty of Dubai, and we can take advantage of it legally, which is the most important thing. And of course, we love living here. It's pretty nice. And I actually have a lot of questions to ask you. So I'm going to be diving into the first one, which is, how old are you again right now?
I'm 24.
You're 24.
Turned 24 recently.
Yeah. Wait, on what day?
July 20th.
July. Yeah. Nice. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I just turned 24 as well, actually, in August. So I didn't know you were similar age. So when did you actually start making money? I know your YouTube channel was really what took off for you, right?
Sure.
What age did you start making, let's say, 10K per month?
10K per month was probably when I was about 19. That would have been 10K per month Canadian. So like about 7,000 probably based on the exchange rate back then. But then it very quickly accelerated. I was actually in university at the time. At this point, I had just landed my first job as a software developer intern at Microsoft. And as soon as I started working at Microsoft is when I hit my first 20K per month, because I was getting paid about $11,000 per month from Microsoft, and then about the same from YouTube at that point. So kind of 19, 20 is when the income really started to grow. And then as soon as I was 21, I ended up dropping out of my computer science degree to pursue YouTube and business, because I was losing money being in the degree because of how much I couldn't do, because I had to do at least minimum schoolwork. And this was during COVID, online, all that kind of stuff. And then I quickly went up to hundreds of thousands of dollars, which I've been able to grow and sustain since then. So it is kind of crazy thinking back to it, but for probably about the past 5 years, I've been making at least 10K per month.
It felt good to finally quit that job, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the Microsoft internship was actually like a really cool experience. It paid well relative to the income at the time. I'm glad I did it. It's kind of a stamp on the resume.
Yeah.
But that corporate life just really wasn't for me. And I definitely, couldn't have done that for another 5-10 years. Or I could have, but I wouldn't have been satisfied or really been able to reach kind of full potential, I feel like.
Yeah, I remember when I was working as a financial advisor at Desjardins in Canada, I remember I had my marketing business on the side as well. And by 9 a.m. or whatever, 10 a.m. when I would get to the office and sit down, I think it was 9, I would have already made more money than I would make that day at my job. So I would be like, damn, this is kind of weird. Like, you know, I would rather just not be here. So that's eventually what happened. I also, you know, left that job as well. And I used to work at the CRA, believe it or not. I don't know if you know that.
You're the enemy.
Yeah, I was the enemy. Yeah. Yeah, no. But yeah, it's definitely a good feeling to have your business do well. And of course, you know, back then I didn't, at least, and I'm sure you as well, you didn't think about the tax advantages. But, you know, knowing what we know now, back then we were like, okay, we're making so much money, we can quit our jobs. That's great. But taking the next step to reduce your taxes legally is like another booster in life, right? Like I always think about it like, if you save only it's not only $100,000, but if you save $100,000 in taxes in 1 year, after 40 years at a very normal return rate, that will be millions of dollars by retirement. Like it's not even believable in some cases, but like that's literally how much money you're leaving on the table if you stay in Canada or in the UK and you keep paying taxes there. Like in your case, let's say you're saving 500K, then damn, that's, you know, a lot of money. It could literally be the difference between you being, you know, a multi-millionaire by retirement, let's say 10 million, to being even in some cases like a billionaire. Who knows, right?
Sure.
Just from a small change and shift in your life.
Especially the earlier you do it in life, right? Like if I had even made this decision 1 year earlier, my net worth would be probably double what it currently is, because I would have had the compounding effects of the market we've seen recently, where in 1 year it's up, 25%, something like that. Not year to date, but 1 year from today. So if I had been able to have all that money that I had to pay in tax invested in the market, plus all that extra money I made in that year before I moved, I mean, it's probably close to $1 million plus, right? So the earlier you can do it, the better, especially if you're at a young age like us. I mean, we're 24. Like the compounding effect of your money is just unbelievable by the time you get to even 50, 55, and you're still young enough to actually use it, right? You're not like 90 and you have, $100 million.
Yeah, at least you can use the money. It's not just like deferred in an account somewhere where you're not able to use it, right?
Exactly. So if it's just sitting there and you don't really feel like it's accessible, which is kind of the situation I was in with the holding company, you kind of have that scarcity mindset with money. I was talking to you guys about this previously, and it's like, okay, I'm making all this money, but I don't really feel like I'm doing that well because it's all sitting in this account that I don't want to touch out of fear of taxes. Right?
Yeah. And we're talking about it. We're like, you know, we should have 1 month where we just spend all of our tax savings that we would have had to pay back in Canada just to enjoy it. Yeah. We probably won't do that, but you know, we could do it, and we're still saving way more money in taxes.
For sure.
And we're enjoying it a lot more. And I mean, like, you know, to go a step further, a lot of people would be like, well, Kevin, maybe you guys are paying that much more money because you're living in Dubai. No, that's not true at all. We're actually talking about this earlier too. You save a lot of money living in Dubai. It's a lot cheaper for a lot of things to live in Dubai. Yes, some things might be more expensive, but overall, even without thinking about taxes, it's a lot cheaper to live in Dubai. So yeah, I mean, yes, number one, it's lower to live here, lower cost to live here. You're saving a lot more money in taxes, and the quality of life is pretty good. I don't know for you, but for me, I genuinely love living in Dubai. I don't know about you. You recently moved here, so you're still adjusting, shifting to it. Of course, it's a culture change for you. Is there anything that you love about Dubai and hate about Dubai?
Yeah, there's a few things for sure. I definitely would say I like living in Dubai more than I don't like living in Dubai. Like I'm happy I'm here. When I'm here, I don't feel like I want to escape or I want to go to like a different country. I think being here for maybe, 8-9 months, you probably want to get out of it, kind of at least a bit of the materialism. The culture here isn't as good as it is in some other places, but generally lifestyle in general is just very, very good. I mean, you can work hard, you can play hard. I find I'm actually very focused in Dubai. It's a very business-centric city. I feel motivated. I want to get stuff done. Like when I'm in Dubai, I want to be grinding. I want to be working towards my goals. And I'm surrounded by a bunch of people that are doing that and constantly seeing it day by day. But I also have the ability to go to really nice beach clubs or go to the desert, or I can fly, 2-3 hours to some amazing places where if I was in Canada, it'd be triple the cost and it would take me 12 hours to get to where I want to go as opposed to 2 or 3, right?
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, actually. That the positioning of Dubai is so nice. Like if you speak to any Canadian, for them, going to Europe is like a once in a lifetime trip, which is kind of sad because it shouldn't be. You should be able to enjoy things like this a lot more often. And being in Dubai, we can just quickly fly to Europe. It's not quick, but it's a much quicker flight than from Canada.
100%.
And it's a lot cheaper as well. So because they have more frequent flights, right?
Yeah.
So we can go there quickly. We can go to Africa too if we wanted. We can go to Southeast Asia as well. We can go to You can go back to Canada too, but it's just centered in the world, so it makes it a lot easier. You've been traveling a lot, and talking about traveling, a lot of people don't know this, but if you live in Dubai and you pay taxes in Dubai, you don't actually have to be here the entire year, right? You only need to be in Dubai for 3 months per year to qualify for domestic tax residency. Of course, you can stay longer, but this is the minimum, right? So throughout the year, where do you like to go and travel?
Yeah, I think it depends. I mean, I did kind of a whole Southeast Asia circuit with one of my friends earlier this year, Thomas, who you've talked to on the channel before as well. And anyways, we were in Bali, we were in Thailand, we were in the Philippines, Malaysia. I was in Europe for a little bit. So I do really like Southeast Asia because I like the culture there. I like the people there. It's so incredibly cheap. You just get such great value, especially if you're willing to spend, a little bit more than a backpacker budget. And it's once you're in Southeast Asia, it's very close to everywhere else. So I did really enjoy traveling there. In the future, I would love to go to South America. Peru's been on my bucket list to go to something like Machu Picchu, like a more kind of destination focused trip rather than just living in a country, which is kind of what I was doing in the summer. And I actually haven't been many places in Europe yet. I've only been to Germany and the UK. So I would like to check it out. But I think my vibe is more kind of South America, Southeast Asia. Yeah, and also around the Middle East. I mean, I'm here, so doing a trip over to Oman, even if that's a road trip, there's a lot of places I want to go to, and I'm going to reserve a lot of those for kind of the hot summers in Dubai, right, to get out and kind of experience the world a bit, which I think is a really nice benefit of living here. It almost kind of forces you to do that, right? Go explore, figure out another place you want to live, and then spend about, for most people, it's usually 7-8 months kind of really dialed in and focused, which is my plan, and I think a really nice balanced lifestyle, at least for me so far.
Yeah, for sure. Like I've set up a lot of clients here, and I see all types of lifestyles. Some people come here, they just spend 3 months through. Oh, and this is another thing, actually. You don't have to spend 3 months in a row. It can be throughout the year. But I see a lot of people spending 3 months throughout the year. But I also see other people like you, for example, who get a long-term residence, like a full year contract, and actually spend 7, 8, 9 months here. But it's a really good point that you mentioned that, the summers here kind of force you to go out and travel and enjoy a little bit. I never thought of it in a positive way like that. I was always like, oh, it's hot in summer. I don't like that. But that's a really good outlook on that.
Yeah, obviously everyone's different. But for me, I've been wanting to travel. I mean, especially at this point when we're kind of younger, don't yet have a family, not super tied down. It's a lot easier to do that. I think obviously, if you're in your late 40s, family, kids, that's probably not ideal for you. But for me, at least, this lifestyle is kind of what I wanted. And I was kind of itching for that in Canada. And like you said, it's so difficult to travel places when you are in a country like Canada. The experience just isn't great. It takes so long. It's so expensive to fly places, even if you are doing, well financially. And here it just makes it so much easier to actually kind of, just go for a random trip or something like that, right?
Yeah, I remember when we moved to Dubai, it was our second time coming here. So the second year, me and my business partner, we went on a trip to Thailand and we just stayed there for 2 months. And, that's something I would have never done if I didn't move to Dubai, right? So just little things like that, just improve your quality of life. It was one of the best trips ever. We were, just traveling, trying to live like super cheap, but we had money, but we're just trying to live like the other people. No hostels or anything like that. Of course not. Still buying everything we wanted, but you kind of have to live cheap when you're in Thailand. You can't spend much money, right?
You can, but once you get past like, a few $1,000s a month, like you're just wasting it pretty much at that point. If you go spend $5,000 US in Thailand, like you're living like an absolute king doing anything you want. So,
and that's something a lot of our clients do too. Like they'll spend 3 months here, then they'll go spend 2 months in Thailand or 3 months in Thailand and then 3 months in Indonesia. But they always come back to Dubai, obviously for tax residency, all that stuff. But one thing I was talking about with Thomas as well was that, overall, being in Dubai just makes you more money. Ignoring taxes, just being here makes you more focused. You can work here. And I asked him the same question. If you could choose between, Bali and Thailand, putting taxes aside, 0% in both places, let's say, which one would you pick and why?
Yeah, I actually made a video about this on my second channel, and it is a difficult decision because both places kind of have different pros and cons. I think I would probably lean towards Bali. Again, kind of, Bali versus Thailand, country versus island, but those are the main places you're going to go. In Thailand, you could go to a lot of different cities. Bali just has a lot of the amenities, and it's really set up well for digital nomads and expats. You have a big community immediately when you go there. Pretty much everything's in English, and the English is pretty decent, at least compared to some of the cities in Thailand. And I just found that it's kind of an easier place to live for me, at least compared to Thailand. In Thailand, it's kind of crazy. Like Bali is crazy as well, but Thailand, the city is just, especially if you go to Bangkok, for example, like there's so much energy. It's so vibrant. It's like constantly alive. I'm not like a huge, massive, big city person, which I know sounds contradictory living in Dubai. But living in Dubai Marina, it doesn't feel like, as much of a concrete jungle as it does, I think, in a place like Bangkok. So I actually really like both places. I could totally live a great life in either. But I would probably lean towards Bali just because I think it's set up a little bit more for kind of, expats, digital nomads.
Okay.
Thailand is great. A lot of people are probably going to disagree with me in the comments, but that's my personal experience. Yeah.
I've never been to Indonesia, so I'm not
Okay,
sure.
yeah.
But no, that's good to know. I guess I gotta go now. So, all right. So now that we have Bali there, of course, my next question is, where would you rather live now?
Yeah.
Putting taxes aside, Bali or Dubai?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I could live in both places, and you're gonna have more tax savings in Dubai. But if I wanted to, the cost is probably gonna be similar living in Bali because you're gonna spend less overall, right? Even if you account for the difference in taxes, I would probably still pick Dubai. I just think it's a lot more. I don't want to say serious of a city, but that's really the only way that I can kind of describe it. I feel more focused. I think there's more opportunity. There's more networking here, more people that are similar to me in this city. You're constantly immersed with people that are doing, incredible things, so much wealth. I think that is inspirational. And like you said before, being in Dubai, I definitely have seen my earning go up. And I just feel like I can do more because I see that every single day. And also because you are consuming a little bit more. The more you consume, I think the more it forces you to earn. So yeah, I really like Dubai. I don't know about, super, super long-term being here, especially with a family or kids. I don't know that dynamic in Dubai, but I would probably still pick Dubai for those reasons. Also the centrality to the rest of the world and potentially going back to Canada and seeing my family and friends. Now we're talking about a 12-hour flight rather than, 2 or 3 connections and, 30 hours if you're going from Thailand, for example.
Yeah, I always envy our clients who are from like Europe or whatever. And they're like, yeah, I'm going to go see my family on the weekend. And I'm like, where do they live? They're like, oh yeah, they're living here. And I'm like, isn't that far? And I'm thinking like, oh, it's just 6 hours away. That's so quick. That's like driving from Ottawa to Toronto, for example, 5 hours to do that.
Yeah, that's a flight from Halifax to Vancouver, 6 hours across Canada. Yeah.
Right? When you moved to Dubai, was it the first time you ever visited Dubai? No.
No, I'd visited one time before. We actually met Thomas, and that was in April, the year before I moved here. So I visited in April, and then in December, January is when I kind of started the transition process over.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because I do have a lot of clients who literally have never even been to Dubai, including myself. I technically came here when I was like 3 years old, but that does not count. But they see Dubai, they see the tax savings, they see the quality of life. It's so well advertised, which it is, and it's not false advertising either. It's real. And then they just move here and they just take the leap.
Would you recommend that to someone, or would you suggest that they come to see Dubai first?
No, I 100% recommend they just come.
Just come without visiting first.
Yeah, you don't even need to visit.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
I would say you're gonna feel a bit more confident if you come here first. You get at least a lay of the land, something like that.
I think if you have a family, maybe. But if it's just you, because the thing is, I don't think there's any better place in the world to live. So for me, it's like, okay, well, regardless where you come from, if you come to Dubai, you'll definitely like it more than where you came from.
Yeah,
so.
I think so. I think for me, it was made a little bit easier because I already knew a few people in Dubai and I had been here and made those connections.
Yeah.
If I was just going here kind of blind and didn't know anyone and I was like, okay, I'm just moving to Dubai and all I've done is watch YouTube videos on it, I think that would have been a lot more intimidating and probably more of a stressful process. So.
For sure. And that's actually a really good point that I'm just thinking about. Having a community helps a lot. Even me, myself, I didn't move here alone. I moved with my business partner. But, if I was just alone, that's a totally different dynamic. And I actually never thought about that until right now. And I'm thinking about all of my clients who are like pretty courageous to just like come here for the first time alone. That's honestly, I never thought about that.
Yeah, I think you can figure it out, of course, but you gotta kind of go out of your way to meet new people, right? I was fortunate to have 3 or 4 people I already knew in Dubai and who'd gone through the process. But definitely for me, I don't know if I would have made the leap as fast if I was alone. And that's something I talked about in a different video as well, is Dubai can be great, but if you're here completely alone, it can be a pretty isolating place. I'm not sure what you think of that because I guess you didn't really have that experience. But at least talking to my other friend, Thomas, he had mentioned that previously. And I could definitely feel that. It's easy to kind of come here and be like, okay, I'm in this super expensive city. I'm just going to like sit in my room and work all day and not go out and I don't know anyone. And you got to go a little bit out of your way like you would in any new city to make connections, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's like any city you move to, if you don't know anyone there, it'll be tough. If you guys move to Dubai and you use our help, I'll be there for you. Don't worry. Which actually, now I start to understand why so many people want to meet with me because they don't really know that many other people. But to be honest, even if you just come here, you go play sports, you'll meet people there.
For sure.
If you just go to the mall and expect to find someone, no. But when you do things that you like, you'll definitely find other people.
100%. I'm just mentioning, just make it a priority because life is just so much better when you have even 2 or 3 close friends.
Yeah.
And especially when you first get here, you're going to have questions, tips, things you didn't even think of, right? That obviously you guys can help with. And that's why it's nice to have a real person on the end of the phone kind of guiding you along the way.
Yeah.
Which is what I always say. I did this whole thing kind of alone. Like I knew what was going on. I had some people I talked to, but I didn't have someone who kind of did everything for me, set up the visas. I was just like, okay, maybe this is going to work. Maybe I'm going to land in Dubai and I don't know. Am I going to get my Emirates ID? Am I not going to get my Emirates ID? So it is a very stressful time, right?
Very, very, very stressful. Even us, we went through that ourselves as well. We did the process ourselves, but it just is not worth it. The amount of stress, time, and expenses, because you do make mistakes in a lot of the cases. You will make mistakes, or you'll set up something that's not fully optimized, or maybe you did things in a way that's not actually best for you. Having someone that's actually there, and that's why I'm super proud of the service we give people, because it's actually a service I would buy myself. I would 100% even pay double the price to get our service, not the whole price, but the service charge.
Yeah.
Because we're really there for people. They send me messages. I will reply to them right away. I'm replying right now on this podcast. Just kidding.
Yeah, this guy's crazy with that.
Even like people think that I'm like a robot because I reply so quick. And if it's not me, it's one of my employees or something. We make it like a priority for us to make sure that the customer experience is amazing. If they have questions about random stuff, we'll be there to support them as well. It's not just business setup, give me money, done, goodbye. No, we take care of everything. We help you get set up here. I have clients who they bought an off-plan property here. They bought real estate, not through us, but through another agent. And for some reason, there's issues and they need to liquidate it. I'm there to help the client try to sell the property, actually. So that's what we're doing right now for her. And little things like this that you wouldn't expect, we're actually there for you in the future. So super happy that we can give people a service. That's why we literally have 5-star reviews on Google. We don't have one bad review. And that's actually a problem. Sometimes clients are like, why do you have such good reviews? Where are the bad ones?
It's almost not believable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. And even me, myself, I look at it from like from another perspective and I'm like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. But then to be honest, nobody has a bad experience. We did have one client who gave us a bad review, but they weren't even our client. They just did a call with us.
Yeah.
They didn't like our price for whatever reason, and it was very clearly listed. And then they give a 1-star review, and then they removed it 8 months later, and now they're a client. So anyway, we're going to help them out. But that was the only bad review I ever got. Now, in regards to setting up in Dubai and all this stuff in Dubai, taxes, money, I always like to ask this question. Do you think there's any situation where anyone should pay 50% in taxes?
I think that's an interesting question. I mean, it depends what you're getting for 50%, right? I wouldn't want to blatantly say no. No one ever should pay 50%. If you're getting, the most incredible quality place to live in the world, maybe that's worth it. And there's people that will pay, like me, hundreds of thousands of dollars to leave a country, right? So, I wouldn't blatantly say no, but I think in today's world, there's not a place I would go to personally where I would be willing to pay 50%. There's just not that much competition, especially from the Western countries. I don't want to go live in Canada. I don't want to live in the US. I don't want to live many places in Europe. I mean, the taxes are just too high. I'd rather live in another place, earn a ton of money, and then when I'm not in my earned income years, I can bring my money there and spend it. So I think some tax is reasonable. I'm not completely no tax. I'm totally okay with paying a little bit in tax, but when you're in a place like Canada and you're paying, more than half your income in tax, it's robbery, it's theft, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, so in Canada, you pay 54% in taxes, right? Would you pay 25% in taxes to still live in Canada?
Knowing what I know now and having made the leap and being here, probably not. However, if I was still living in Canada and I hadn't done this and I didn't know a bunch of people here and I wasn't, immersing myself in all this kind of media online, I probably would have been a lot more okay paying 25% tax. That would have been stomachable. I would have been okay with that. Would have been close to my parents still, my family. I wouldn't have had that dire sense of I need to get out. But I think there's other reasons too that we can dive into why I wanted to leave Canada. It wasn't purely a tax thing. Tax is important for sure, but I wanted to leave for a lot of other reasons, not just purely financial.
Yeah. And I mean, one thing that a lot of people always mention about Canada is, Canada is so good. We have free healthcare. It's so good. What do you think about the free healthcare?
Yeah, I mean, look, it is free healthcare. So I will say, if you're in Canada and you get cancer or something along those lines, you will get treatment. I don't know when you're going to get it or how good it's going to be, but you're not going to have to mortgage your house to get something like that. So if we compare it to the US system, there are, some advantages. I don't want to completely just shit on it. But for the average person, for everyday medical needs, it's horrendous. I mean, you're a Canadian. you don't want to go to the hospital. You don't want to go to the walk-in clinic. If you go there, it's probably more likely you're going to get a worse illness going into one of those places because you're sitting in a room full of hundreds of sick people or people that really barely need any assistance.
Yeah.
And you're waiting literally hours upon hours. I have tons of personal horror stories. My brother has personal horror stories of waiting 12, 14 hours, sleeping in the hospital, hoping that maybe one of the doctors that's there will eventually see us just to tell us we need to come back 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, months later. I had family members waiting 9, 10 months for surgeries that should be done in a week, to get basic scans done, and even a lot of the stuff you want, lab work, you got to pay extra for that. So
True.
It's just crazy. Yeah, look, if something really, really bad happens, you're gonna get pretty decent quality care in Canada, but it's gonna take a very long time to get it. That's all I can say. For everyday medical needs and even things that are like kind of bad, like I broke my nose, it took them 9 hours to see me.
Oh my
Just
God.
to say, yeah, you're fine. You just go home. There's nothing you can do about a broken nose. Like
No
now, I just go to
way.
ChatGPT for 90% of the medical issues. Right? If I'm in Canada, I don't want to go into one of these facilities unless something's like really, really, really bad.
Yeah, no, I feel you there. I tore my labrum in my hip about 5 years ago now. 6 years, actually. And I went to the doctor. They checked me out after whatever being there for 10 hours waiting. And then they said, okay, perfect. We're going to send you to take, I think it was an x-ray or MRI or something like that. And they're like, we'll set the appointment. We'll let you know when it is. It was literally like 6 months later. We did that. We got the results. We went back to the doctor. He looked at the results. He was like, yeah, you have a tear. I'm like, yeah, I know I have a tear. It hurts. I can't run. Like I couldn't run.
Yeah.
And he's like, this will not heal naturally. We're going to have to do a surgery on your hip. And I'm like, oh, damn. Okay. Well, just let me know when it is. They never called me again.
Yeah, that's
never
common.
called me again. Like 3 years, 4 years later, they never called me again. Now I'm deregistered from Canadian healthcare.
Same, yeah.
But I mean, like, they still haven't called me. Like, I can't get it now, but they still haven't called me. And this is like 5 years later, right? So pretty insane that they'll just let people, live their life like that. To be honest, it actually did heal, or at least I don't feel the pain anymore, like 4 years later. But for 4 years, I didn't run. I didn't play soccer. I didn't play basketball. I didn't play any sports because I didn't want it to hurt because it really hurt.
Of course.
Bad.
And think about how much money, I mean, I don't know at the time how much you were earning in Canada, but at least from my perspective, how much money like I would pay in taxes. Most of that's supposed to be, or at least a portion of that's supposed to be, contributed to healthcare, right?
Yes.
So if you just take even, let's say, 20% of the taxes I paid, what kind of private healthcare could I afford? I could just pay for my own surgery out of pocket with the amount of money I was paying in taxes, and now I have to sit in 10-hour long queues, wait 9 months for a surgery. It's insane. Like, not everyone, but a lot of people would just be better off paying for their own private health insurance and getting good, high quality, fast coverage compared to how much you have to pay for this really, really broken system in Canada. And it hasn't been like that forever, but at least in the recent years, it's really, really bad. I mean, I don't want to blame immigration, but that's a huge factor on it as well.
More people, more cases.
And in Nova Scotia, for example, where I had moved recently, before I moved to Dubai, there was a 3-year waiting list to get a family doctor, which is what you're paying for that service and you're not getting it for 3 years.
I'm surprised there's a waiting list.
Yeah, 3 year long though.
I remember, not me, but someone was telling me that they just moved to a new city and they're like, yeah, I'm trying to get a family doctor. There
luck.
was no waiting list.
luck,
It was just like, no, no.
Sorry, better luck next time. Yeah.
What are you supposed to do in that case?
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty bad. But I mean, like, that's why a lot of people do travel to the US or Latin America or Europe just to get surgeries done or get work done, even dental work done in some cases, right? And it's pretty funny. I know Trudeau was talking about like, oh yeah, 1 million Canadians got dental care. I don't even know what they got, but they got seen by a dentist for the first time in years, and it was like, okay, like, what about the other millions of people who
We have bigger problems.
So it's pretty interesting. They're very selective about what they at least promote, right? They don't talk about the bad stuff. And actually, speaking about this bad stuff, I was searching online and I found that living in Canada is actually a lot worse than I thought. Like, I always talk about, living in Canada sucks, taxes suck, the quality of life sucks. But I actually have a stat here that maybe you know about. But anyway, Canada is actually rated 58th in the world among young people to live in. So countries that are better than Canada would include South Korea, Greece, Singapore, Spain, Honduras, Malta, and then right below Canada, we have Ecuador, Brazil, Dominican Republic. So why do you think that Canada is just like falling down the ranking?
Yeah, I mean, really, I've said this a lot recently. Like, it's sliding downhill so fast that it's really just not recoverable. I mean, there's so many different reasons, but I mean, we can look at just the cost of living, really, right? A lot of people think the Canadians earn like a decent living, and yeah, you are earning a good amount of money compared to, of course, more developing nations, but you're earning in Canadian dollars, not in US dollars. If you earn, 100,000 Canadian dollars per year, you're really having, about probably 70,000 US dollars worth of purchasing power. And in Canada, things are just so insanely expensive. Like even compared to the UAE, which should be more expensive, realistically, right? Like Dubai should be more expensive than Canada. It's not, especially when it comes to things like real estate, relative to income and all of those kind of things. So if you want to go rent like a 1-bedroom apartment downtown Toronto, which should be reasonable for most young people with, a good career working in the finance industry or something with a university degree, like you can barely get by. I have friends, right? Maybe they make like $7,000, $8,000 per month. Great salary if you're 24, 25. Most people would love to have that. But now you're paying $3,000 per month in tax, right? Including your EI, CPP, all that stuff. So now you're clearing about, $5,000 Canadian. So we're talking less than 4,000 US dollars a month. You want to rent an apartment, you're paying probably $3,000 if you don't have a roommate, right? You want to buy food for a single person, that's easily $500 per month in Canada. You have a car, okay, all of a sudden, boom, you're done. You want savings, you want to invest, you want to grow for the future, you have no choice. So I think really just like the hope is completely sucked out of people in Canada. They just don't see a path forward. They're looking at, okay, I want to buy a home and have a family in my mid-30s like my parents did. How are you going to do that? How are you going to buy $1 million condo, right? Or you go way outside where you're living, 2 hours away. It's still $600,000-$700,000 for like, a bungalow that's 2 or 3 bedrooms. So it's just insanity in Canada. And I mean, I don't blame the Canadian people. Like you're living in one of the coldest countries on earth. It's horrible half the year. The taxes are insane. Cost of living is going up like crazy. What's the good things about Canada? We have great nature, good people, but that can only carry so far. So I talked to some of my friends in Canada and it's just really like, yeah, it is what it is. Like I don't have hope. I'm not planning for the future. I'm just trying to get by week by week. That's the average Canadian right now, especially if you're, millennial Gen Z.
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty sad to be honest. And like, we're lucky that we could leave. And I know it sounds crazy that we're talking about, oh, it's sad for people in Canada. Like it's a first world country, boohoo. Like there's third world countries out there that don't have anything. But, to be honest with you, a lot of these third world countries actually have higher quality of lives for their citizens. It's kind of backwards, right? At first world, and actually Canada, specifically Canada, I think that Canada is the worst Western country to live in. It's the best, worst country to live in. Because it actually is. I don't know any other Western country that's worse to live in than Canada.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I'm with you. If you try to just go with like a basic pros and cons list, like you struggle once you get past 4 or 5 things on the pro side, right? And you're already claiming healthcare there, which really just isn't viable as like a massive advantage of Canada, especially if you're doing decently well. If you're not like at poverty line. The nice thing about Canada is, if you're really struggling and you want to live off government assistance, okay, you can do that to some extent. But if you're someone who has ambition, you have drive, you want to do better for yourself, you want to grow your future, your career, your income, your investments, like it's just not the place to do it in Canada. I mean, you're just getting sucked dry at every single step. And you'll see this as soon as you start making any level of income in Canada, as soon as you have capital gains, multiple income streams, you just really feel like a resource to be extracted from. Like, I feel like everything I do in Canada, any transaction I make, the government wants a piece of it, right?
Yeah.
And just talk about HST, GST alone. In the province I lived, it was 15% sales tax. I mean, here it's 5%. People complain about the 5% VAT, but I'm happy to pay that all day compared to 15%. So
yeah,
I can talk so many bad things about Canada, but it's really
I feel you. And I mean, like, honestly, the worst part is like all of this stuff is new-ish. Like not all of it, of course, taxes have always been high, well, at least recently, in my life at least. But like a lot of the other stuff, like quality of life, have just gone down so much. And that's one thing I hate about Canada. If you start a business in Canada, that's not your business. More than half of that business is the government's.
Pretty much.
So you cannot start a business alone. A lot of people think, oh, it is your business. No, it's not your business. Go make $1 million and tell me if it's still your business, because Mr. CRA, the tax man, is going to take half of your money and you cannot do anything about it. You can defer that money into the future and pay it later, but you're still going to have to pay it. So
exactly.
It's pretty bad. Like, that's why a lot of people are leaving. And actually, this is a really good point that I have to say. Now, the next thing I want to tell you is that Canada is the best country to live in. Yes. And if you look at us on a tax level, we're the only best country. We're the best country with exit taxes right now. The UK doesn't have any exit taxes. And a lot of other European countries also don't have exit taxes. And the ones that do have exit taxes are also pretty similar to Canada in terms of, the quality of the services and all that stuff. And even recently, I saw that there was an amendment proposed in France, and maybe you saw this too, to implement citizenship-based taxation for French citizens, right? Why are they implementing this? Because they know that a lot of people are going to leave, and people are leaving. And if they don't do something about it, then it's going to be too late before they have all their millionaires and, income producing people leaving the country. Like in the UK right now, there's no exit tax. Where are all the millionaires leaving and moving to? Dubai. And they're coming from where? From the UK. If they implement an exit tax, it'll slow it down for sure. If they implement citizenship-based taxation, it'll slow it down for sure as well. So I think, personally, all the countries around the world will eventually have a similar system to the US, where you can't just leave the country tax-free. You either have to pay an exit tax, or you literally cannot avoid it. You'll have to pay taxes back to your home country for the rest of your life, as long as you have that passport. That's why I think it's really, really important for people to make these decisions quickly, because even with this French bill that was proposed, yes, it was not approved, it was rejected, but even with this bill, if you read it, you'll see that there was like a clause in there that said, if they were a resident for the previous X amount of years. So if you do get out now, before this all comes into play, then you should actually be in an okay position to legally still pay no taxes, even if you are technically required to pay back.
Yeah, the reality is they're just making it more difficult to leave. I mean, that's just the truth. You can go look at all the rules. Like, they never take away regulation, they only add it. So it is just becoming more difficult. And especially if you're an entrepreneur, that's where you're really getting screwed. If you're just, someone who's working in a normal 9-to-5 job, all the money you make, you already have paid taxes on it. So you're not going to have to pay this massive unrealized gain unless you have a bunch of properties and things like that. But for most people, if you're just working a normal job, you can get out now relatively, kind of scratch free. But if you're an entrepreneur, the longer you wait, the more expensive it becomes, but it also gives you more of a reason to leave. So it's really a lose-lose. Like in my situation, it costs a ton of money to leave, but what's the other alternative? Stay and also pay a lot of money. So it just sucks either way, and it just sucks more the longer you wait. So yeah, it really is an urgent thing. And Canada actually added a bunch of other rules that are more complex. I don't need to go through the exact ones here, related to company formation and structuring, and something called a capital gains dividend surplus strip, if anyone want to look that up, last year. Also increasing fines and penalties for people trying to evade taxes. So just trust me. I went through this whole process. I paid like almost $100,000 in legal and accounting. It's getting more difficult. And if I didn't make my move last year and I decided to make it this year, it would have been hundreds of thousands of dollars more.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
100%.
So if you left Canada 1 year later, on top of the $500,000 you already paid, it would have cost you another $200,000-$300,000.
Yeah, and to just put in this perspective, like, I'm not some crazy multi-millionaire that has $5-10 million in assets. Like, I'm talking about a slightly more than $1 million kind of net worth at leaving. So in terms of the amount of tax, it quite literally would have been like 60 to 70% of my net worth that I would have had to pay in tax, just because of how everything is structured with the small businesses. And I had good structures in place. It's not like I had, bad advice, or I did something crazy that resulted in back taxes or something. Anyways, I don't want to punish myself with more taxes, but that's what happened.
For sure. No, I mean, most of the clients that I have are in the earlier stages of their business, where they still benefit from that exit tax relief that we mentioned, the $1 million, I think it's 1.2 or whatever it is, right? $1 million exit tax relief. So they're fine. But if you wait until you don't get that relief, then you're not relieved, right? You're going to be stressing about having to pay this amount of money.
Or you defer like otherwise taxable income or assets. That's the main thing that actually will screw most people, is not necessarily the 1 million qualification. It's more so that they probably accumulate a lot of assets inside of the corporation that they haven't yet paid personal tax on, that now they're either going to have to pay exit tax on, or they're going to have to pay some kind of dividend or personal tax if they take it out. So that's really the main concern.
So that's the problem. So they just keep the money in there. They keep deferring it. And then 3 years later, they're like, oh, okay, now I'll go to Dubai. But you can't just move that money. And you can't just, I guess technically you could just leave it there too, but then it's just wasted money.
But then you're probably going to be
deferring it for another day as well.
But the issue with leaving it is now you have a substantial financial tie in Canada, which may not allow you to be UAE tax.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? It's a secondary tie, but that's a very strong secondary tie, which could make you a tax resident.
My net worth in Canada doesn't look good in the CRAIs when you're trying to claim non-tax residence.
For sure. No, that's a very good point. So, that's the thing. Like, I remember even my business partner, he was like, we could just stay in Canada and, keep it in the company and just pay a low corporate tax, because it's actually not that bad, the corporate tax, right? What is it, 12% for small businesses?
Small business, depending on where you are, is anywhere from 9 to 12. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. So, I mean, in that case, it's not bad, right? But it's kind of like not realistic, because your company can't buy things in your name, right? So eventually you have to cash it out eventually. So you're just delayed. You just need to rip off the Band-Aid, get out of Canada, go to Dubai, pay no taxes, live a good life. Don't just try to stress your life out in Canada and try to do all these weird structures, have all these different companies, all this stuff. Just come to Dubai right away. Make your life easy and save all the money in taxes.
Yeah, for sure.
And then later, if you want to go back to Canada one day, of course, technically you're not supposed to have the plan of returning. But if you want to go back to Canada after 10 years or whatever, sure, go back to Canada. Now you're $40-50 million richer, depending on your income.
You can bring it in tax-free. Yeah.
Yeah, you can bring it back tax-free. A lot of people ask me, Kevin, can I bring my money back to Canada after I move to Dubai? Or is my money trapped in Dubai? It is not trapped. You can just wire it back. It's nothing. I don't know where this thing came from. Maybe someone was in trouble with the bank and they froze his assets or something, but you can easily just wire your funds back and just go back to Canada. But it's important that if you do go back to Canada, then if they ask any questions and the CRA does ask any questions, then you can be like, yes, I was legitimately a tax resident in Dubai. I have all this here, blah, blah, blah. I actually set it up properly. I declared this. That's why it's important to do it properly and not just kind of do it incorrectly. Sure. Because if you do go back, you should be able to, prove what you did was legitimate.
Yeah,
right?
you need good advice. Realistically, you need good people that know what it's doing. This isn't a decision you make in a few days. Like you might in some other countries, but in Canada, it's very, very complex.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing that I get on calls with my clients, and I always tell them like the real advice, because like anyone in this world, we want to make money, right? But I don't need the money that bad where I gave fake advice, or false advice, I should say. Like a lot of other agencies where they tell clients what they want to hear instead of what's true. They'll be like, yeah, you just have to do this. You don't have to pay any taxes. You experienced it firsthand. Maybe we won't name names of the agencies or people, but you experienced it firsthand where they just told you fake information that would have costed you literally $500,000 to $1 million.
100%. Audit risk, everything like that. There was companies just straight up telling me just lies realistically about Canadian tax law. They just didn't know anything. And if I had gone with that advice and just blindly trusted them, I'd probably be in an audit right now. So yeah.
All right. So it was a pleasure to have you here, Tim. It feels good to speak to a Canadian who actually knows what I went through, and I know what you went through, and it hurts my heart that you went through it a little bit more than me. But hey, that's a good thing. You made more money than me, so you had a little bit more exit tax, so that's fine. But now that you're in Dubai, do you plan on moving back to Canada at all? Is there any plans of returning back to Canada in the near future?
No, really. I mean, obviously, I have to say that for tax reasons, but also, no, I fully do not plan on moving back to Canada. When I'm there, I really am just kind of waiting until when I can get back to Dubai or when I can go somewhere else. I think there's so much more beyond Canada, and unfortunately, most people in Canada and the US, for that matter, never get outside of that little bubble. And it really is completely life-changing, really setting up a new life in UAE, and I'm so fortunate I made that decision.
Yeah, and of course, moving here, is there anything that surprised you about Dubai?
Yeah, I think here things are done a lot differently than they are in the West. Some ways positive, some ways negative, but it is definitely a big change and kind of a different style of life. Honestly, I'm just really happy to kind of get out of my comfort zone, start a new life, feel like I'm kind of starting from scratch, but being able to build on everything that I've had previously. And it really feels like kind of a fresh start. When I moved to UAE, I just built some new habits. I had a new lifestyle, had a great group of friends. I'm going outside more because it's not snowing half the year. And I'm just really fortunate to kind of be able to start my life again almost. That's what it feels like, but in a much better environment.
Awesome. Well, the UAE welcomes you. We're happy to have you here in Dubai. And if you guys want a full step-by-step guide on exactly how to set up in Dubai, you can watch this video right here. I think, Tim, you can point to it as well. There, do you see it? Oh, there it is. So watch that video. It's a full guide. It breaks down literally everything you need to know. And of course, you can book a call using the link down below. I'd be happy to go over exactly how we can help you move to Dubai.